Welcome to the Athletic Brewing Post-Race Report. I'm Dee Griesbauer. The Athletic Brewing IRONMAN 70.3 Oceanside was the third stop in the 2025 IRONMAN Pro Series schedule, and historically kicks off the North American racing season. With 2,500 points up for grabs, let's see how the day unfolded. Our professional athletes got underway at 6:30 local time in a very chilly Oceanside harbor. Water temperature was 57.4 degrees, which probably felt warm for the athletes with a 48-degree ambient air temperature. A large pack of 70 professional men would headline the third stop on the Pro Series. After the start, some familiar names took to the front of the men's swim pack. That included Greg Harper, Magnus Manor, Seth Ryder, but a whole host of others would be in touch. Conditions were great in the harbor, a little bit of chop at the outermost parts. By the end of the Roca swim course, it was a large lead pack led by Greg Harper. Magnus Manor was second, Seth Ryder third. But the group was a big one and included Jake Birtwistle, Gustav Eden, Ben Canute, Justin Rielli, Casper Stornis, Seth Ryder, and Sam Appleton. All eyes were on cycling powerhouse Christian Blumenfeld, who took to the lead in the early miles of the bike. It was a large pack, though, and race dynamics were at full throttle. All eyes were on Lionel Sanders, the three-time champ here in Oceanside, who had a 3-minute, 11-second deficit out of the water earlier this morning. But up the road, in the lead, Christian Blumenfeld had a catastrophic flat. He would walk back in pursuit of technical support and a spare wheel to get him back rolling. Meanwhile, out on the course, the likes of Jake Birtwistle, Gustav Eden, Rudy Van Berg, Ben Canute, Justin Rielli, Casper Stornis, Seth Ryder, and Sam Appleton would play cat and mouse games throughout the entirety of the bike. Past the halfway zone, it was Justin Rielli who was throwing punches, throwing jabs at his competitors. Rudy Van Berg answered the call. Into transition, Rielli would be the aggressive mover, trying to string out the large group of leaders at the front of the race. Ben Canute looking for redemption this year with a new coach, a new home, and a new strategy for racing hard. It was Justin Rielli, though, throwing punches, right, left, hook, jab. Into transition, he would lead the men in to Ruvi T2. In the early stages, Rudy Van Berg overtook Justin Rielli and sat comfortably in the lead. Further back, eyes were on Lionel Sanders, and as he shot out of transition 2, he would drop Jake Birtwistle, who stood down for a 2-minute penalty due to an earlier drafting violation. First, Sanders would overtake Canute, leaving Ben Canute in the dust. Those that had counted Lionel out suddenly became hopeful. It was Gustav Eden, Seth Ryder, and Rudy Van Berg. The three ran at the front, but then the three became four, and it was Lionel Sanders in the lead of the race for the very first time before the end of the first lap. Lionel would charge hard and come away the winner for the fourth time at the Athletic Brewing IRONMAN 70.3 Oceanside. Let's take a look at our women's race recap. A smaller but equally talented field of women got into the Oceanside Harbor just 5 minutes after the pro men would take off. We expected a small but strong lead pack, and we were not denied. The Brit Steph Clutterbuck took to the lead of the women's race, followed closely by Paula Findlay, who fought very, very hard to hold on to the draft of Steph Clutterbuck. Grace Alexander was in the mix as well, and Jackie Herring not far off the pace as Steph Clutterbuck led the women into the Ruvi T1. We anticipated that Paula Findlay would be aggressive in the early stages of the bike, trying to distance herself from her competitors, but that group of four would stay together out on to the Zoot bike course. Once out riding, the group of four stayed together through a majority of the bike course, but eyes were further back as Lisa Becaris tried to make her mark on the race. Paula Findlay raced a very patient race through the early stages of the bike, and once they got to the climbing section, was up out of the saddle, trying to do her work to separate herself before they got back to transition 2. She was able to take the lead and did get a bit of a gap on her competitors. The smooth pedal strokes of Paula Findlay made it look like a done deal for the Canadian. Jackie Herring, second place in last year's IRONMAN Pro Series. We thought she'd have a strong day, as she's a great all-around athlete, both across 70.3 and Ironman racing. Findlay made her move on the bike course during the climbs and got a bit of a gap. Jackie Herring tried to follow, but the pace was a little bit too rich, and she held on to Grace Alexander, but soon the American, Lisa Beccaris, would come from behind, charging hard up out of the saddle, up the climb to make her mark on this women's race. And then eventually went by Findlay herself and would take the lead in the women's race into Ruvi T2. An outstanding performance for this up-and-comer at the 70.3 distance, a career-defining day for Lisa Beccaris out on the Zoot bike course. Looking strong, Lisa Beccaris took to the opening miles of the Hoka Run course, looking strong and content to be leading a major race for the first time in her career. But Jackie Herring smelled blood in the water and would be the first one to catch Lisa Beccaris. Herring made the move, silencing questions about her run form after an earlier ankle sprain a few months ago. Paula Findlay would hold the gap to Herring of about 30 seconds through the first lap, overtaking Beccaris in the process. But that gap stayed steady at 30 seconds between Jackie Herring and the Canadian Paula Findlay. Beccaris slid to third. The battle continued between Herring and Findlay. It was the American Danielle Lewis who came from 3.5 minutes back at T2 to insert herself onto the podium. But eventually, it was Paula Findlay's day. Paula Findlay grabs the tape, your 2025 Ironman Oceanside 70.3 champion. Let's look at today's results and points for our professional men. Lionel Sanders takes home the full 2,500 points for the win today at Athletic Brew IRONMAN 70.3 Oceanside. Rudy Van Berg in second, Gustav Eden, Seth Ryder, Ben Canute, Jake Birtwistle, Sam Appleton, Andreas Salzberg, Ari Clow, and Braden Curry, all with valuable points on the board, not a 500-point spread between them. On the women's side, 2,500 points for race winner Paula Findlay, who would tie herself in 10th place in the overall standings. The women a bit more spread out, so the point differentials slightly larger than the men, but Jackie Herring taking home a valuable 2,481 points. Danielle Lewis in third, Tamara Jewett, a run from behind, would finish in fourth. And a look at our overall standings in the Ironman Pro Series after 3 stops in the 2025 series events. Magnus Ditlev stands atop the men's leaderboard by virtue of his win at Ironman South Africa. Jake Birtwistle rockets 11 spots into second place, and Braden Curry moves up 14 spots based on his performance today in Oceanside. The other big mover, Dominic Sowija, who moves up 30 spots into the top 10. Our women's rankings remain unchanged after today, though Paula Findlay will tie Natalie Van Coverden for 10th place at 2,500 points. This concludes the Athletic Brewing Post-Race Report. I'm Dee Dee Griesbauer. Thanks for joining us.